If you're hurt, injured, don't waste time. Gary Johnson cries for every dime.
Welcome to Simply the Law, a program created by attorney Gary C. Johnson. Simply the Law provides free legal advice and encourages happiness and quality of life. Now, here's Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome into Simply the Law. I'm Keith Casebolt. My dear friend, back again this week, Gary C. Johnson.
Hello, folks. Thank you for visiting with us. Or better yet, thank you for letting us visit with you. Been a whole week, and I hope that none of you got in trouble or having any big fights, right? You didn't, did you? No. You're all is bliss in your world, right? Tonight I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the origins of how we got our laws. I think you might find it a little bit interesting. I hope you do. It's pretty interesting to me, but then again, it's what I do for a living, huh? It ought to be. The good thing about it is we are alive. We can be happy. As I say every week just about it anymore, it's almost like putting up that doggone underinsurance. I must almost do a slide at the beginning and say, you are important. and you are unique, because don't ever forget it. It seems like no matter how many times you have to say it to people, they don't understand that they are. And you are, folks. Otherwise, you would have never been born. You have a unique talent, and you're unique, and you're important. Now let's go to the computer. I want to talk to you folks about some stuff. We have an office in Lexington. If any of you ever get hurt down that way, it's easy to get to right off of Winchester Road there and I-75. Our local number where you'll find me in Bachville is 800-337-4002, and you can always go to our website and find us. In general, please make sure you have underinsurance that protects you and your family. And as I said a week or so ago, make sure that you have personal injury protection on your motorcycle policy. Okay? Arbitration. Never sign a document agreeing that any dispute will be settled by arbitration, especially nursing home or hospitals. You have given up your right to hold them accountable for the harm they did do to you if you signed those arbitration agreements.
Can I ask you a question before you go on? Because,
sure.
You know, you said, hey, I put this up every time at the start of the program, and you do. Still today, do you have people walking into your office that does not have the underinsurance, that you have to tell them, I'm sorry, you were run over, you were horribly hurt, there's no money, and there's nothing I can do to help you?
I have people walk into my office that don't have underinsurance, that could afford it. Now, if you can't afford something, that's one thing. But if you can't afford it, you need to get underinsurance. I have people that have been horribly injured, probably by medical malpractice, that have signed the arbitration agreement. I look at them and I say, I really don't think I can help you. By the time we get it to in front of this arbitrator, which is going to be paid by them, it will cost a whole lot of money, and the odds are you probably won't recover.
You know, Gary, what surprises me about that is I see people all the time that said, he's done such a good job telling people about arbitration. No one in their right mind would ever sign an arbitration, but not long ago, you and I were with a business person who had signed an arbitration agreement, and you had to look at this person and say, I'm not going to be able to help you.
That's right. But that's life. That's yesterday.
Yeah.
We're talking about tomorrow. My friends are not going to do it tomorrow or today, right? And remember, the present is today, because it is a present that we receive from the Lord to have this day, right? That's why they call it present. It's a present.
Indeed.
Good way to look at it, right? So let's go back to the computer. No, let's take a break and then we'll go back to the computer.
All right, we've got the program laid out. You're there with the television on. Thank you for picking this show. Stay with us. Gary has some very valuable information when we come back. This is Simply the Law.
You notice on the legal advertisement of lawyers that they've made verdicts an issue? Well, guess what? This old boy from Eastern Kentucky's got the largest verdict in the state of Kentucky, and nobody's even come close to it. Over my career, I've got my clients verdicts of over $315 million. Yep, I'm glad they made verdicts an issue. Check my record and I'll bet you decide it might be wise to give old Gary a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. You started off the program saying you were going to tell us a little bit about the origins of the law. Gary, is the thing that makes America the greatest country in the world is that no matter who you are, and you point out all the time that you're unique and you're special, but a lot of us want to say, I'm just little old me. How could I go up against the biggest of the big corporations or insurance? Who's going to listen to me? But the law gives us that benefit.
Today, that's the law in this country. Now, will it be 5 years from now? Who knows? If the corporations in the insurance industry and big business gets their way, it will not be that way. You will not be able to file a lawsuit against people that have harmed you. And if you do, you will not have a jury system. And if there's no jury system, you might as well be in arbitration. Yes, there is a movement across this country to do away with the jury system. And there is a movement across this country to put caps so people can't recover their full damages. Everybody loves the idea of caps. Fix it so they can't get much money for their pain and suffering, right? Yeah, that's caps.
How are you going to package this? How in the world are you going to sell to the American people that you need to do away with the jury system, you need to have an arbitration, and you need to put caps on people's injuries?
Because they've never been hurt. They've never needed the system. Therefore, it's easy to make the sale to them, and it's going to save you money on our court system. It's going to save money on your taxes. It's going to save money on your insurance rates. It's going to save you all this money. All you have to do is make sure you can't ever recover if you get hurt. But they don't say it in those words. Because nobody ever believes they are going to get hurt. Nobody ever believes they are going to be the one that's mutilated in a wreck. We wouldn't get on the road if we believed that. We wouldn't get on the road even if we suspected we were going to get that. Therefore, we have to tell ourselves in our perceptions that we aren't going to be the ones that's going to need this system.
Okay.
Therefore, it's easy to sell that.
So I'm following you now. Any person that's been through the system and has had to go to court and has been injured would stand up and shout to the high heavens, this is a travesty, it can't be done. But anyone who hasn't been through it doesn't have the empathy for the process.
Don't understand it.
They don't understand it, and they're going to say, hey, it's never going to happen to me. Those are all frivolous lawsuits anyway, right?
Well, it is so easy to say, okay, let's cap pain and suffering at $250,000. A lot of states have done that. Guess what? A seriously injured person can never break even in a lawsuit if they're capped at $250,000. Does that sound crazy?
Well, we're going to have people say, wait a minute, $250,000 is a lot of money. Where'd it go?
It went to the cost of doing the litigation, which will probably be $100,000 to $200,000. And it went to attorney fees, which is going to be several $100,000. The person cannot possibly break even.
Medical bills?
No. Let's say you have a cap of $250,000 in pain and suffering. And your damages, your actual damages and lost wages, impairment of ability to earn money, and your medical bills are $1 million. And then the jury lets you have pain and suffering, and it's capped at $250,000. So you got a verdict of $1,250,000. You lose money. Now, how is that possible? the cost of putting the litigation on is probably going to cost you $100,000. Your attorney fee is probably going to be on a contingency, which is generally 1/3. So you end up, instead of having $1 million to cover your actual losses that you had out of pocket, you're probably going to end up with about $800,000. If the pain and suffering is the way that the person that had to file a lawsuit can break even. If you had $1 million in pain and suffering, then the person is definitely they're going to get their damages. But if you cap that pain and for it to be $1 million verdict, there would have to be a lot of suffering. I hope I'm making sense to you folks how outrageous it is that they would cap this at $250 when a person that's seriously injured can never break even in a lawsuit if pain and suffering is capped at that.
Okay, so now I see the angle. The angle is coming over and going, oh, but if you just did arbitration and you cut out this attorney, all that money wouldn't go to the attorney, but the fact is you would never get any of the money.
That's right.
There
would be no award of money.
There would not be $1 million. There wouldn't be 500,000 because at that point they've ran off all of the sheepdogs and the wolves are now watching the flock.
Let's take a break. We'll be right back. I got some stuff on the computer about the law we need to be talking about.
Isn't it amazing when you look behind the scenes and Gary can point out the angles of why people are doing things, then it starts to make sense. Stay with us. Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson right after this break.
I'm attorney Gary C. Johnson. I hate these commercials as bad as you do. I have no choice if I want to let you know that I'm in the business of practicing law, representing injured people, except to do this commercial. I don't fish, I don't golf, I get money for injured people. Check my record, go to GaryCJohnson.com, and I'll bet you if you've been hurt, you might want to give me a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. My friend, you always say you've got to follow the money and you'll find the answers, and I think you just pointed that out for us.
It's always about the money. Let's go to the computer, talk to you about how we ended up with our system a little bit and how wonderful it is. First, I want to do this one, impression. Spend this week listening to others and letting them impress you, okay?
That's good.
That's a rule. Common law. That's the law that evolved from England. That is law that is created and are refined by judges, not legislatures, by judges. It started in England. Current legal decisions are based on decisions on previous cases. That's common law, refined and created by judges. And believe it or not, the common law is always right. Let me just get away from that for a little bit. I tell young lawyers when they come to work for me, I say, use your common sense and decide and look at what the law ought to be. And if it's common law, it will always be exactly that. In other words, it will look to see what the law ought to be for the people to have justice. And you will not need to know any law to practice law. If you'll just look at it and say, what should the law be in this circumstances to give a just result, and you will then know what the law is. The exception to that is law that is, as I call, enacted by the shrimp eaters or the legislatures. That law, you can't use that rule because that law, more likely than not, will be on the side of the people that had the money to buy the shrimp for the legislatures. Okay? Let's go back to computer.
Lobbyist.
Yep. Before the Norman conquest of England in 1066, justice was administered by county courts, presided over by a bishop and a sheriff. Henry II created a system of common to the country. In other words, he called the law common to the country in 1152. Now, what does that mean? King Henry also instituted a jury system comprised of citizens. Now, see, that's a long time ago, folks. Judges would travel from the King's Court to England to resolve disputes. These disputes would be decided on local customs. The judges would then meet and discuss their decisions, which were recorded. And that's the unique thing about it. Their decisions were written down in every given situation where they found a decision, where they made one. Stare decisis was created, which would bind a judge to follow the decision previously made about another judge on the same facts. And you hear a lot of talk about, well, should law be overturned? Well, in common law, if another judge has got together and they made a decision based on a certain set of facts, then the judges thereafter are bound by that decision and have to do the same thing. Therefore, you have an orderly process that people can rely upon to know what the law is in conforming their conduct to it. Now, I'm not talking about any big legislature and a big book of laws. I'm talking about laws by judges, by their decision. It's called stare decisis. In other words, has this set of facts ever come up? Has it ever been decided by another judge? So they go to the book and they look. And if this set of facts was decided by another judge, then this judge is bound to follow that same facts and decide it the same way. Therefore, the people can conform their conduct with a certainty of knowing what the law is going to be. Now, you have to understand they had no law back then.
Yeah.
They had to create it. And that
I
was the amazing thing about it all.
I'm really surprised this coming from King Henry. I mean, this guy's the king. I mean, he could be the ultimate dictator, but it sounds as if, though, he was setting up a system to protect the common person.
Well, without an orderly system of laws, you can have no commerce. You can have no contracts. Everything just as a state, you're in the dark ages, literally, if there's no system that people can rely upon of the law. And well, in the 1500s, England didn't have any. So he set up his system called stare decisis, where the judges had to follow the other decisions made by other judges. Let's take our last break and we'll be back and I'm going to talk some more about this.
Stay with us. I have a question for Gary that you may be thinking of here at home, so we'll ask when we return. Simply the Law with Gary C. Johnson, right after this.
Insurance companies will test lawyers to see if they know what they're doing. Luckily, they tested me. And because of that, over the years, I've been able to get verdicts for my clients in excess of $315 million in the state of Kentucky, most of which are just in eastern Kentucky. We proved we know what we're doing. We proved we can go in front of a jury. And guess what? Most of my cases settle now. Wonder why? Give us a call.
Welcome back into Simply the Law. Now, when you're talking about the judges following each other with the same set of facts, this is completely different than criminal, because I'm sitting here thinking, wait a minute, you see sentences handed down in criminal court that sometimes a judge will give more time or less time, or they have a different finding, even though the cases could be similar. I mean, are we talking different, or is this the same thing?
Your legislature set criminal law.
Okay.
That is by statute. It also, there was common law criminal law too. It is I don't even want to go there. It's such a, I'm talking about torts and people being injured in contracts, because I could do 15 programs on criminal law and still nobody know anything about it.
I got you.
Okay.
I got you.
Let's go back to the computer. Got some stuff on there. Again, this body of law then, by these judges' decisions that were compiled and written down, became known as the common law. This allowed the citizens to be able to conform their conduct to a body of law that they could depend upon. Contracts could be written that would be enforceable.
So, Gary, this is the safety net. You talked about commerce. So, obviously, the king realized, wait a minute, our economy is not going to grow. We're not going to have any commerce. We're not going to be able to do anything unless the citizens know they have a safety net that they can be protected should they be wronged.
And then they write their contracts in conformity with the law that's been handed down. There wasn't no big legislature. You didn't have computers. You didn't have faxes. You didn't have all of the things we've got. You really didn't have anything back then. And so King Henry set out to establish something that the public could rely upon in their dealings. And it worked.
Now, is it amazing to you that we're talking about 1,100 years later and that this still applies?
We still have common law. Let's go back to computer. Property could be held under the law, believe it or not. People just come and take your property. You could hold it. Commerce would be facilitated because of predictable standards in England. The most basic contract, property, and tort laws were all created, believe it or not, by common law, by judges making decisions based upon the customs of the people. Most basic criminal laws were originally created, believe it or not, by common law, but most of them now are by statute from legislatures. Statutory law is law created by legislatures. Today, most statutes, believe it or not, to a great extent are the same as common law, and when they diverge from common law is when you have a problem with them not necessarily being very just statutes. Okay?
One thing you pointed out to us on a recent program that all these years doing the program with you, and I didn't even realize, we tend to think all the laws in one state are the same in another state. And you were talking about individuals traveling, and of course during the summer and the holidays you're traveling, but you were talking about in Kentucky how the laws were and the insurance and everything as opposed to other states, and there is a big difference.
Big difference. Big difference. Kentucky's actually got pretty good law compared to its neighboring states on insurance. So if you're going to insure your car, insure it in Kentucky. Much more favorable law in regard to your rights under that policy, especially on your underinsurance and your PIP, your personal injury protection. Your neighboring states don't have it. Kentucky, it's mandatory. So insure your car in Kentucky.
Last thing that popped up there before we came off of the computer was the motorcycles, and you talked last week about the PIP, getting the PIP for motorcycles. Gary, if you would, talk a little bit about what happens when we're on the highway, because when you pointed this out years ago, it shocked me. We do not see motorcycles because you go through the fall, the winter, you don't see them, you're not looking for them, and then all of a sudden here you are in the warm months, and you come up to an intersection and you're looking to see if it's clear. You don't see a car, you don't see a truck, but there's a motorcycle, and for some odd reason, you don't see it.
I read a book a few years ago in regard to this very thing, because I try to read and understand, because all those people that write that stuff are probably smarter than me. And what they talked about was the human brain, and it was the guy that actually started Palm Pilot that wrote the book. We see as much by memory as we do actual seeing. Because when we're familiar with an area, and we may pull up to an intersection, and we may drive through that intersection and never know we did it without even thinking about it. How many of you have driven somewhere and all at once realized you didn't even think about what you were doing?
What's the old saying? I've been on that road so many times I could drive it with my eyes closed.
And that's a fact. because you don't need your vision. So what happens is your vision literally takes a rest and lets your memory of what you've seen before take over and primarily be what you're seeing. Well, there's a little problem with that. You pull up to this intersection year after year, you look to see if a car is coming. No car is coming, you pull out, or if a car is coming, you wait, right? So you're on remote control. You pull up to the intersection, you look to see if a car is coming, your memory says, no car coming, you pull out, there was a motorcycle there. Your brain didn't register it, literally, because you weren't expecting to see a motorcycle. You were looking for a car. Now, if you'd taken the time to say, I'm going to look to see if a car or a motorcycle is coming, then your brain would have been aware to look for a motorcycle. And this is a really complicated book, and it talked about when the ships first appeared on the horizon in the Caribbean islands, that the natives, when they looked out, didn't see the ships until somebody pointed them out to them.
Because they'd never seen them.
They were seeing from memory.
So for me right now, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I think about when I'm driving in a foreign city, Jacksonville or wherever, if you're traveling. I've got both hands on the wheel. I don't want anybody in the car talking because I'm concentrating, because I'm in a new area. But if I'm here at home and I'm on local roads, then I'm driving on remote because I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable with my surroundings.
Why do most wrecks happen within 25 miles of your home? I just explained to you why. We aren't vigilant every second because we are driving from memory as much as we are from what we're seeing. And it causes people to do dumb things. And you say, but I didn't see them. Well, that's probably true, but you're still responsible because you pulled out in front of them. So you have to be vigilant at all times, understanding that your mind may very well play tricks on you. And some other human being's life can be destroyed because of your mind playing that trick on you. That's life. So, folks, remember, say to yourself, I'm going to look to see if a car or a motorcycle's coming, okay?
Yeah, my friend, thank you. That was great information. So Gary's right. Let's be on guard. Let's look for the motorcycles. And if you're a motorcycle rider, take Gary's advice and make sure you get the PIP. If you do have a wreck, you're going to need every penny that you can get. On behalf of Gary C. Johnson, I'm Keith Casebolt. Thank you so much for tuning in to Simply the Law. As always, Gary and I look forward to seeing you again next week, right here at the same time.
Thank you for watching Simply the Law, a program created by Gary C. Johnson. Until next week, may you be safe, blessed, and happy.